The gym was loud with the sounds of gloves hitting pads and trainers shouting instructions. Everyone was focused on their routines, but the attention soon shifted to the back of the training mat. A well-known fighter named Ryan was stretching after his sparring round, and he noticed a woman quietly tying her shoes in the corner. Her name was Emily, and she was new to the gym. She was not dressed like the others, no flashy gear, no crowd around her. She carried herself simply and moved silently. Ryan smirked and raised his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "So, what brings you here, little one?" he asked mockingly, planning to get a laugh from the group around him. Emily looked up but said nothing. She just tightened her ponytail and stood up straight. The coach stepped in before Ryan could continue and asked if Emily was ready for her first round of practice sparring. Emily nodded calmly, while Ryan chuckled, shaking his head. "This is a waste of time," he said loudly, "but fine, I will take it easy on her." Everyone gathered closer, curious to see what would happen. The bell rang, and Ryan approached Emily with a smug grin, tapping his gloves together like he was already victorious. Emily kept her guard up and moved lightly around the mat, her eyes never leaving his stance. Ryan threw a playful jab, expecting her to flinch, but to his surprise, she slipped it effortlessly and tapped him on the shoulder with her counter. The gym erupted with a few surprised gasps. Ryan frowned and got more serious, throwing a combination this time. But Emily's movements were sharp and precise. She blocked, dodged, and landed a clean strike to his midsection, causing him to stumble back slightly. The room grew quieter as people realized this was no ordinary woman who had walked into their gym. Ryan tried to regain his confidence, but Emily's calm focus started to unsettle him. Each time he attacked, she read his movement like a book, slipping past his punches and tagging him with quick, accurate shots. The smug grin on his face vanished, replaced with determination and a hint of frustration. By now the crowd had completely stopped their own training to watch the match unfold. Whispers filled the room. People asked who Emily was and how she had learned to fight with such discipline. Emily, on the other hand, never raised her voice, never showed anger. She was steady, controlled, and patient, like she had been here 100 times before. Ryan was sweating now, his breathing heavier, his punches losing their precision, while Emily stayed light on her feet, waiting for her moment. And then, in one swift motion, she stepped inside his guard and swept his leg, sending him off balance. Ryan hit the mat with a thud. The gym went completely silent. All eyes were on Emily as she calmly extended a hand to help him up, her expression still calm and respectful. Ryan hesitated, his pride clearly bruised, but he accepted her hand and rose to his feet. The crowd broke into stunned whispers, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others smiling at the upset they had just witnessed. Emily simply bowed slightly to Ryan and walked back to the corner of the mat as if nothing had happened. Ryan stood frozen, his chest rising and falling with his heavy breaths, his eyes following her every move. For the first time in a long while, he was speechless. The gym had just witnessed something it would never forget, and it was only the beginning of Emily's story there. Ryan stood near the edge of the mat, still trying to process what had happened. The other fighters were murmuring among themselves, and some even approached Emily to ask if she wanted another round. But Emily quietly shook her head and went back to her bag, picking up her water bottle like the match had been nothing. Ryan could not let it go. He walked over to her, his tone different, now not mocking but serious. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" he asked, his voice low enough so only she could hear. Emily glanced at him calmly and replied, "Years of training, nothing more." Ryan wanted to press her for details, but there was something about her calmness that kept him from pushing too hard. The coach walked over and clapped Ryan on the shoulder with a grin that only made him more embarrassed. "Looks like you met your match," he teased before turning to Emily. "Emily, if you are willing, I want you to train with the advanced group tomorrow." The room grew even louder with whispers at that announcement. Nobody got invited to the advanced group on their first day. Ryan clenched his fists, not out of anger, but out of frustration with himself. For years he had been the best fighter in this gym, and now on one quiet afternoon a woman no one had seen before had walked in and humbled him in front of everyone. That night Ryan could not stop thinking about it. He replayed the sparring in his head, every movement, every dodge, every strike she had landed, and the one moment when she swept him to the mat so easily. It gnawed at him, but it also sparked something inside him that he had not felt in a long time. the desire to prove himself again. The next morning, Emily arrived early before most of the gym had even opened. She stretched in the corner quietly as always until Ryan walked in and noticed her again. Without a word, he walked over, set his bag down, and started warming up across from her. The silence between them was heavy, but not hostile, more like two rivals recognizing each other. When the coach finally arrived and saw them both ready, he smiled knowingly. "It looks like today is going to be interesting," he said. The others gathered again, whispering excitedly because they knew something was about to happen. Emily tied her gloves slowly, her eyes steady, while Ryan adjusted his wraps with a sharp focus he had not shown in weeks. The tension built as they stepped back onto the mat for another round. This time, Ryan did not plan to underestimate her, and Emily looked just as calm as before, as if she already knew what was coming next. The bell rang, and the rematch began. Ryan moved carefully, this time his eyes locked on Emily's every step. He circled her slowly, refusing to rush in like before. Emily held her stance light and relaxed, her expression unreadable. The fighters watching leaned forward, knowing this round was different. Ryan threw a quick jab, testing her reaction, but Emily slipped past it with barely any effort. He followed with a low kick, sharper and faster than before, but Emily checked it perfectly and countered with a swift strike that tapped his shoulder. Ryan felt the sting, but instead of frustration, he grinned a little. She was good, very good, and for the first time, he felt like he was fighting someone who could push him beyond his limits. Emily did not grin. She stayed calm, her breathing steady, her eyes never leaving his. Ryan stepped in with a strong combination left-right, and then a sudden feint to set up a takedown. But Emily was ready. She moved like she had seen it before, catching his rhythm and sweeping his leg just enough to send him stumbling but not falling. The room erupted with gasps again. Ryan steadied himself, his pride demanding he fight harder, but his respect for her skill beginning to grow. Their exchange went on, sharp movements, calculated strikes, neither of them giving in. The coach stood watching with his arms crossed, impressed more than ever. Around them, the fighters whispered louder, asking who Emily really was. Ryan felt it too, the question burning in his mind as he blocked one of her kicks and countered with a body shot that finally landed clean. Emily absorbed, her face calm, though he could tell it had impact. She stepped back only for a moment, then surged forward with speed that caught him off guard, and her fist stopped just short of his chin. The bell rang, ending the round. Everyone exhaled at once, like they had been holding their breath. Ryan stood there, chest heaving, sweat dripping, his eyes locked on Emily. For the first time, he nodded to her, a small gesture of respect. Emily nodded back, silently, then walked off the mat, leaving Ryan staring after her, more determined than ever. The whispers in the gym grew louder. Who was she, and where had she learned to fight like that? Ryan knew he was not done with her, not by a long shot. Ryan stepped off the mat, still breathing heavy, his body buzzing with the thrill of the spar. He grabbed a towel, wiping the sweat from his forehead, but his eyes kept following Emily as she quietly moved toward her bag in the corner. The others gathered around, whispering and throwing questions at each other. No one had ever seen her before, and no one expected her to fight like that. Ryan walked over, his pride still stung, but his curiosity burning hotter than ever. "That was impressive," he said, keeping his tone steady, though his voice carried a hint of respect he rarely gave anyone. Emily looked up at him, her expression calm, the same unreadable calm she had shown during the match. "Thank you," she replied softly, then bent down to tie her shoes, as if nothing unusual had happened. The simplicity of her response caught Ryan off guard. Most fighters he knew would have bragged or explained their skill, but she just carried on quietly, as though it did not matter. "You have trained somewhere before?" he pressed, leaning against the wall, trying not to sound desperate to know more. Emily gave a faint smile but did not answer. Instead, she stood slinging her bag over her shoulder. The gym had gone quieter now, with everyone waiting to see what she would say. Ryan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "What gym do you train at?" Emily paused for a moment, her eyes meeting his. She did not speak, but the way she looked at him made it clear she was measuring him again, just as she had on the mat. Then she said softly, "I train where I need to," and started walking toward the door. The fighters in the room exchanged confused glances. Ryan clenched his fists, not in anger, but in determination. He was not used to being left without answers, and for the first time he felt the pull to chase after someone, not to beat them, but to understand them. He called out, "Wait, Emily." She stopped at the doorway, turning slightly, the light from outside spilling across her face. Ryan took a step forward. "You're not just some quiet woman who wandered into this gym. You fight like someone who has done this for years. Who are you really?" The room was dead silent, everyone hanging on her response. Emily studied him for a long moment, her calm eyes steady, before she finally spoke. "Who I am does not matter," she said. "What matters is what you saw and what you learned today." Then she pushed the door open and walked out, leaving the gym buzzing with shock and curiosity. Ryan stood there, jaw tight, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. He knew one thing for certain: he was not going to let her slip away without finding out the truth. Ryan stood frozen for a moment, staring at the door that Emily had just walked through. His pride pushed him to stay put, but something stronger pulled at him, a need to know more, a need to understand who she really was. He dropped his towel and jogged toward the exit, ignoring the murmurs of the other fighters behind him. When he stepped outside, the cool night air hit his skin, and he spotted Emily already halfway down the street, her pace steady and unhurried, as if she had no care in the world. Ryan called out, "Emily, wait." She slowed but did not turn around, so he quickened his pace, catching up until he was walking beside her. For a moment neither of them spoke, the only sound the rhythm of their footsteps on the sidewalk. Finally, Ryan broke the silence. "You don't just fight like that without years of training. I need to know where you learned it." Emily glanced at him, her face calm but her eyes sharp, like she was still watching every move he made. "I learned by surviving," she said in a quiet voice that carried more weight than Ryan expected. He frowned, trying to piece together what that meant. Surviving what? Emily kept walking, her gaze fixed ahead. "Some fights are not in gyms, and some lessons are not taught by coaches." Ryan slowed a step, thrown off by her words. He realized she was not just talking about martial arts, but about something deeper, something heavier. He wanted to push for more, but her expression warned him not to pry too hard. Still, his curiosity burned. "You're not planning to disappear, are you?" he asked, half joking, but half serious. Emily finally stopped, turning to look at him fully, her calm eyes meeting his once again. "I go where I am needed," she said softly. "Tonight it happened to be here." Ryan searched her face, trying to read her, but again she gave nothing away, and it frustrated him almost as much as it fascinated him. Before he could respond, a car passed by, its headlights briefly lighting Emily's face, and Ryan caught something in her eyes, a flicker of pain, or maybe memory, that disappeared as quickly as it came. Emily adjusted the strap of her bag and started walking again. Ryan followed close behind. Back at the gym, the coach stood in the doorway, watching the two of them, leave a thoughtful look on his face. He had recognized the way Emily moved, the way she carried herself. It was not the mark of a random visitor. It was the mark of someone trained for more than sport. Ryan did not see the coach's expression. He was too focused on Emily. He knew she was hiding something, and he was determined to uncover what it was. Emily suddenly slowed as they reached the corner of the street, and without warning, she stepped into a small diner, its neon sign buzzing faintly against the quiet night. Ryan hesitated for a second, but then pushed the door open and followed her inside. The place was nearly empty, just a few late-night regulars sipping coffee and staring at their phones, the hum of conversation barely above a whisper. Emily slid into a booth near the window, setting her bag beside her. She did not invite Ryan to sit, but she did not tell him to leave either. Taking that as a sign, Ryan sat across from her, leaning forward on his elbows, his eyes fixed on her face. "Why here?" he asked quietly. Emily looked out the window instead of at him, the dim streetlights casting long shadows across her features. "Because it is quiet," she replied at last, "and quiet places are where the truth can breathe." Ryan frowned, trying to untangle her words. "You keep talking in riddles, Emily. I just want to understand." She finally turned to him, her gaze steady. "If you understood, you might wish you did not." A waitress appeared with a pot of coffee, asking if they wanted anything. Emily nodded and ordered black coffee. Ryan asked for the same. When the waitress walked away, Ryan leaned closer. "Look, you embarrassed me back there, I will admit it, but more than that, you showed me something I have never seen before, and now I can't stop thinking about it. You fight like someone who has been through hell." Emily was silent for a long time, the kind of silence that made Ryan shift uncomfortably in his seat. Then she said softly, "You are not wrong, but I don't fight to prove anything, not anymore. I fight because sometimes life leaves you no other choice." Ryan studied her every word, hitting him harder than he expected. He realized she was not just a mystery, she was carrying something heavy, something she chose to keep hidden from most people. Before he could speak again, the diner door opened, and the sound of heavy boots echoed inside. Ryan instinctively turned his head, but Emily did not move, her expression unreadable. Two men walked in, dressed rough, their eyes scanning the room with purpose. One of them spotted Emily and froze for a split second before nudging the other. Ryan caught the exchange immediately, and his chest tightened. "You know them, don't you?" he whispered. Emily calmly lifted her coffee cup, her hands steady as stone. "I was hoping I would not see them again," she said, her voice low but unshaken. Ryan leaned closer, his pulse quickening. "Who are they?" Emily set the cup back down and finally met his eyes. "They are part of the reason I left everything behind." The two men began walking toward their booth, their steps slow, deliberate. Ryan glanced at Emily, ready to stand, but she gave the faintest shake of her head. "Stay seated." Her calmness in the face of whatever was coming sent a chill through him. The men stopped at the edge of the booth, their shadows stretching across the table as the neon glow flickered behind them. One of them, tall with a scar across his cheek, leaned in close, his voice low but sharp. "Thought you could just walk away, Emily." Ryan tensed every muscle in his body, screaming to stand up and shield her, but Emily remained still, her eyes locked on the man. "I did walk away," she said quietly, "and you should too." The scarred man smirked. "Not a chance. You owe us, and you know it."
"Okay."
Ryan frowned, confused. "Oh, you, what is he talking about?" Emily did not answer him. Instead, her gaze hardened, and for the first time, Ryan saw a spark in her eyes that was sharper than anything she had shown in the gym earlier. The second man, broader, with a shaved head, leaned closer. "We can do this easy, or we can do this messy, but you are coming with us." Ryan pushed his chair back, ready to step in. "Enough. She is not going anywhere." The scarred man glanced at him with disdain. "Who is this kid?" Emily finally spoke, her voice cutting through the tension. "He is someone who has nothing to do with you, and if you know what is good for you, you will leave him out of it." The men exchanged a glance, then the scarred man laughed. "You always did have guts, Emily, but guts won't save you this time." Ryan clenched his fists, anger boiling in his chest, but Emily reached across the table and lightly touched his hand, a silent command to stay calm. She stood up slowly, her movements deliberate, like she was still in the middle of a match, every step calculated. "If you want to try," she said coldly, "then try." The diner had gone silent, the few customers watching with wide eyes, the waitress frozen in place, holding a tray of empty mugs. Ryan felt his heart pounding in his ears as the two men squared up against her. He wanted to stop it, but some part of him knew Emily was not afraid. She was ready. The scarred man took the first step forward, reaching for her arm. Emily moved so fast, Ryan almost missed at her hand, snapping up to block his wrist, her body twisting to redirect his momentum, sending him crashing into the edge of the booth. The other man lunged, but she shifted again, her movements smooth and powerful, and in seconds he was stumbling backward, his balance broken. Ryan could only sit there stunned, his chest tight with both fear and awe. The men were already trying to recover, glaring at her with rage, while the rest of the diner held its breath. Emily straightened her posture, her voice steady as stone. "Leave now, or the next time you won't be able to walk away." The scarred man hesitated, wiping blood from his lip, his eyes dark with fury, but he finally jerked his head toward the door. "This isn't over," he spat before storming out, his partner following close behind. The diner slowly returned to life, whispers spreading from table to table. Emily sat back down across from Ryan, her face calm as though nothing had happened, though her hands trembled slightly as she lifted her coffee again. Ryan stared at her in disbelief. "Emily, what was that? Who are they really?" Emily lowered her gaze to the dark surface of the coffee cup, her voice barely above a whisper. "They are pieces of a past I thought I buried." Ryan leaned forward, his voice urgent. "You cannot just leave it at that. You need to tell me what is going on." She looked up at him finally, her eyes sharp yet weary. "You wanted the truth, Ryan, but the truth is heavier than you tea." Emily sighed and set her coffee down, her fingers curling against the chipped ceramic mug as though she were holding back a storm inside her. Ryan leaned in closer, his pulse still racing from what he had just seen. "Emily, you need to tell me the truth." Her eyes lifted to his, and for a moment he thought she might shut him out again, but instead she exhaled slowly, as if she had finally decided to let go of something she had carried for too long. Years ago, I trained with them, she said quietly, not just in gyms, not in places you would recognize. It was different, darker than what you have seen me do here. Ryan frowned. Trained with them? You mean those two men back there? Emily nodded. They were part of a group, a network, really fighters, mercenaries, call it whatever you want. They were good at finding people like me, people with talent, who could be sharpened into weapons. Ryan felt a chill run through him, and his stomach tightened. You were one of them. Her lips pressed together for a moment before she answered. I was, but I got out. Got out, Ryan repeated, his voice rough. How do you just walk away from something like that? You don't, she admitted. You run, you hide, you build a new life, and pray they forget about you. Ryan leaned back, his mind reeling from the revelation. Everything suddenly felt heavier. The quiet woman he thought he knew now seemed like someone who had lived 100 lives before he had ever met her. Emily kept speaking, her voice calm but laced with pain. I thought I had done it. I thought if I kept my head down no one would notice. But they always find you eventually. The weight of her words hung between them, and Ryan felt his chest tighten. He wanted to comfort her, but at the same time his head buzzed with questions. Why now, he asked. Why are they here, after all this time? Emily looked out the diner window at the flickering streetlight in the parking lot. Because I was stupid enough to step back into a ring, she whispered. The moment I fought again, it was like a flare in the dark, and they saw it. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, his heart pounding harder than before. He could not believe it. The quiet woman who had once just been a mysterious fighter was now tangled in something far bigger. Emily looked back at him, her voice steady, but her eyes betraying fear. I should leave before they drag you into this too. Ryan leaned forward, his tone sharp. No, Emily. If they are coming after you, then they already dragged me in. I am not letting you face this alone. For the first time since the fight, her expression softened, and a faint trace of gratitude flickered in her eyes. But the moment was cut short as the bell over the diner door jingled again, and Ryan turned to see a new figure step inside. This one was different, calmer, more deliberate. He wore a dark coat, and his eyes scanned the room until they landed on Emily. Her body tensed instantly, her hand tightening around the edge of the table as she whispered under her breath, "Not him." Ryan glanced back at her, alarm rising. Who is he? Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. He is not like the others, he is worse. The man moved with quiet authority, each step deliberate, as though he already owned the space around him. Emily lowered her eyes, but Ryan could see the way her muscles tightened, her every movement sharp and controlled, like a predator cornered, but not yet ready to strike. The man stopped 2 tables away and smiled faintly, though the expression carried no warmth. Hello, Emily. It has been a long time. Ryan froze, his mind racing. Who are you? Emily did not look at Ryan, her gaze locked on the man in front of her. His name is Victor, she said, her voice flat but laced with venom. Victor chuckled softly. Still so cold, he said, tilting his head. I've been searching for you for years, and then suddenly you make yourself visible again, stepping into rings like the old days. Were you hoping we would find you? Emily clenched her jaw. You do not belong here. Victor ignored the remark, his eyes sliding briefly to Ryan before returning to her. And who is this? A student, a friend, or just someone unlucky enough to sit at your table? Ryan felt a surge of anger rise, but Emily placed her hand on his arm, stopping him before he could speak. She stood slowly, her eyes never leaving Victor. What do you want? Victor spread his hands as if the answer was obvious. You have skills that cannot be wasted, Emily. The group needs you again, and whether you like it or not, they always get what they want. Ryan shot to his feet, his chair scraping the floor. Leave her alone. She is not going anywhere with you. Victor's smile widened, though it was more like a blade than a curve of kindness. Brave, he said softly, but very foolish. Emily shifted slightly, so that she stood between Ryan and Victor, her body angled in quiet defiance. I left that life behind, Victor, and I am not going back. Victor leaned forward just enough for the light to catch his sharp features. His voice dropped to a whisper, meant only for her. Then you leave me no choice. At that moment, the diner door opened again, and 2 more men stepped inside, both with the same cold posture as Victor. Ryan's stomach sank as he realized they were surrounded. Emily exhaled slowly, her eyes narrowing as her voice hardened. You made a mistake bringing them here, Victor. And for the first time, Ryan thought he saw a flicker of unease crossing Victor's face, as if he knew Emily was not as cornered as she looked. The air in the diner grew heavy, and Ryan could almost feel the storm about to break. Emily's voice cut through the heavy silence, like a blade. You should have stayed away, Victor. Her stance shifted ever so slightly, and before anyone could blink she moved with explosive speed. One man lunged toward Ryan, but Emily intercepted him with a strike so precise that he crumpled before hitting the floor. The second man hesitated for a fraction of a second, and that was enough. Emily spun low, swept his legs out, and pinned him with a strike that knocked the air from his chest. Victor's smirk faltered, replaced by something Ryan had never seen in him before: unease. Emily stepped forward, her breathing calm, her eyes steady. "You never understood, Victor," she said coldly. "I was never running from you. I was protecting the people you would have hurt to get to me." Victor's fists clenched, his bravado cracking for the first time. "Emily, you do not know what you are up against." Emily tilted her head, her gaze unyielding. "No, Victor, it is you who never understood what you were up against." With that, she stepped closer, her presence towering, though she never raised her voice. "If you or your group ever come near me, or anyone I care about again, you will not walk away." The diner was silent except for the ragged breaths of the two men on the floor. Victor looked into her eyes, and for the first time in years he backed away without another word. He gestured to his men, and they stumbled out the door, retreating into the night. Emily stood motionless until the sound of their footsteps faded. Then she turned back to Ryan, her expression softening, though her hands still trembled with leftover adrenaline. Ryan stared at her in awe, his voice quiet. "You are not just a fighter, are you?" Emily shook her head slowly. "No, Ryan, I was trained for something much darker, but I chose a different life, and I am not going back." Ryan reached for her hand, and she allowed it, the weight of the moment settling between them. The storm had passed, at least for now, but as Emily looked out the diner window into the darkness, she knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning of a new fight. And for the first time, she was not alone.